We Africans are the disorganized troops against the Europeans' well-organized lies. And many of their lies are disguised as false knowledge. False knowledge is far worse to a mind that has been kept ignorant, because an ignorant mind without false knowledge will continue to seek to find the truth that frees it. But an ignorant mind that has been fed false knowledge, believing that the false knowledge is true, stops searching for the truth that frees it. Therefore becomes mentally enslaved by the false knowledge. This is precisely the case in regards to those Black people who presently believes in Jesus and the Willie Lynch story. Open your eyes and look at the facts as they truly are. Believing in Willie Lynch and Jesus keeps us stagnant in terms of our liberating ourselves. More specifically, believing in Willie Lynch misleads us to believe that there's something internally wrong with ourselves, which then causes us to have doubts within our capabilities of liberating ourselves, which then hinders our ability to do so. And believing in Jesus makes us passively and complacently wait for a fictional Messiah to come down to heaven and rescue us. Those two belief systems are both false knowledge that keeps millions of Black people mentally enslaved. True knowledge affects the mind much differently. True knowledge expands its recipient's understanding of their plight and condition. It stimulates critical thinking. And once a mind has been expanded to a greater radius upon learning the liberating truth, the mind cannot return to its original smaller dimension because the truth won't allow it to. Once the truth has been seen, it cannot be unseen. Once the truth has been heard, it cannot be unheard. Once the truth is explained, it cannot be explained away. It's for this reason why the truth literally acts like a highly disruptive virus to the white society that relies upon prevailing lies in order to sustain itself. The white society sits upon a throne of white empowering lies. It's why they've always assassinated those of us who speak the truth against their power. Nonetheless, those who know the truth must teach it, regardless of the consequences. Because they can take out the speaker of the truth, but they, however, cannot stop the truth once it starts to spread. Because the truth has a vibrational frequency that's more powerful than any lie. All you have to do is keep repeatedly telling the truth, and it will eventually prevail over the lies. Today, I'm going to teach you the true social science reason why the white society has whitewashed their history books. It's a social science behind all that they do. We must learn the social science in order to overcome it. Those who control the present control the past, and those who control the past control the future. That was stated by George Orwell in his book 1984. I'm going to explain the meaning of that quote, and that explanation will then help you to understand why white historians have whitewashed history. The history we've been taught is not true history. Not because it has been accepted by millions does not make it actually true. It's widely accepted as being true because most people have not fact-checked the validity of the history that we've been taught. Furthermore, given that the history that we're taught comes exclusively from the white society, this fact alone demands that we question the validity of the history that we've been taught. Because for centuries, there have existed an agreed upon concerted effort by the white ruling class to always distort historical facts to falsely favor their racial group. They've always distorted historical facts to falsely place themselves either at the center of everything or at the top of everything. They've done it for so long and so often that the word whitewashed was created based upon their proclivity for doing so. George Orwell named this nefarious whitewashing practice Orwellian propaganda. Orwellian propaganda describes societal conditions created and sustained by false propaganda, disinformation, misinformation, distortion of facts, denial of truth, and even the manipulation of the past to falsely exalt the white society. White historians justify this unethical practice as merely being the spoils of war, thus saying that it's customary for conquerors to distort facts and rewrite history to favor themselves. But there are actually two profound reasons they've whitewashed all facts to favor themselves. Two core reasons that are very self-serving to the white society. The first reason is because white social scientists theorizes that a people's future is predestined by the history they are taught to believe about themselves. According to their theory, an inspiring history is necessary in order to acquire an inspiring future, because people reference their future capabilities based upon their past achievements. More specifically, people function based upon the history they're taught to believe about themselves. There are many studies that show that people function based upon what they are taught to believe about themselves. Therefore, to give their racial group an inspiring history that also inspires their future, white historians have whitewashed the history to make their racial group appear much more relevant throughout history than they truly in fact were. This includes falsely giving themselves credit for most achievements and most inventions made by Black people, and by turning many Black historical figures white. The white society constantly and systematically distorts facts to falsely exalt their racial groups. They even distorts their maps to make Africa appear 13 times smaller than its true size, while making all Western countries appear significantly larger than their true sizes. They falsely bolstered the collective self-image and the collective self-esteem and have inspired the future aspirations of their racial group at the expense of those of Black people. It's also the true reason why they've removed themselves from their true non-inspiring cave-dwelling origins of ancient Europe and have instead falsely placed themselves upon their inspiring thrones of Africa's ancient Egypt. They falsely claim Africa's ancient Egyptian history as ridiculously being the history of Europeans. However, all scientific evidence irrefutably proves that they were in fact Africans. The geographical location of Egypt is in Africa. Radiocarbon dating testings have scientifically proven that the ancient kingdom was built by Africans many thousands of years, long before the arrival of both the Arabs and the first Europeans during the 7th century. Hair sample testings, melanin concentrating skin testings, bone density testings, and DNA genetic testings have all scientifically irrefutably proven that Africa's ancient Egyptians were in fact Africans. However, these scientific facts are being totally ignored to perpetuate the lie that Africa's ancient Egyptians were ridiculously Europeans. This whitewashing of history was deemed as necessary in order to give their racial group a type of history that inspires them with and predestines them with an inspiring future. It's a social engineering tactic. This is what's meant by the saying that those who control the present controls the past, and those who control the past controls the future. They have whitewashed facts to give themselves an inspiring future. Now here's the second reason why they've whitewashed history. Also, according to white social scientists, in order for a dominant group to maintain its position of social dominance, the history taught to the population must endorse the dominant group's position of social dominance. This means that the history taught within the society must falsely exalt the dominant group above its subordinate populations. Doing so conveys a subliminal message that the dominant group is inherently superior and is therefore supposed to rule over its subordinate populations. This subliminal message not only makes the subordinate populations more compliant with the dominance of their life, and in many cases, it makes them prefer it. This is what the white society has done to black people. White social scientists describe this nefarious practice as merely instilling a value system into the collective mind of the subordinate population that makes the subordinate population adhere to the authority and existing infrastructure of the dominant culture. We've been socially engineered to think of ways that benefits the white society. The history we've been taught has been whitewashed to make Caucasians appear more significant and more relevant throughout history than they truly in fact were. Doing so is necessary to provide the white society with a false historical platform that endorses their current position of social dominance and is necessary to predestine them with an inspiring future. And when I say that they've whitewashed everything to meet this objective, I do mean everything. Everything we've been taught is a lie. Case, point, and proof. Although Caucasians share more physical characteristics with the Neanderthals of ancient Europe than they presently do with we Africans, they've, however, totally separated themselves from those white Neanderthals of Europe and have instead falsely attached themselves onto we melanated African Homo sapiens. They do so while claiming themselves as being the highest evolved Homo sapiens, while depicting we Africans as being the lowest evolved Homo sapiens. They've explained away their physical differences from we Africans by claiming that they turned white due to migrating to the colder climate of Europe, an alleged form of mutational albinism. However, it's been scientifically proven by DNA analysis that Caucasians are not African albinos, but have instead retained their skin color and their hair type from the Neanderthal DNA. The implications of these findings are enormous because it proves that that Caucasians are literally Neanderthals masquerading themselves as being African Homo sapiens. Here's a fact. It has never been scientifically proven that Caucasians are offsprings of the African Homo sapiens. It has never been a fact. It has always been a theory. It's a theory that's been repeated so often that millions now perceive it as being a fact. It is not. It has also been scientifically proven that we Africans are the only true Homo sapiens. The scientific term for all other groups is actually Homo sapiens sapiens. The additional sapiens refers to modern humans that evolved from subspecies primates. Unlike Caucasians and all other groups that evolved from subspecies primates, we Africans instead have always been Homo sapiens. Africans did not evolve from primates. We Africans are not included on the Darwin evolutionary theory chart. We have instead always been Homo sapiens. The Caucasians separate themselves from the Neanderthal ancestors and have attached themselves onto we African Homo sapiens to give themselves a Homo sapien origin. This might be a bit of a disappointment to those that like the premise that we all originate from Africa and spread across the world. The truth is we Homo sapiens came of Africa, but there were already species outside of Africa, and they whitewash history to hide that fact. The story that Caucasians are African albinos has totally fallen apart by scientific findings, and we Africans are the only true Homo sapiens. The name Homo sapien means wise human. Homo is the Latin word for human or man, and sapien is derived from the Latin word meaning astute or wise. The name is called the wise humans. It is appropriate for we Africans because long before the Europeans invaded Africa, it was Africans that civilized Europe. All of Greece's first scholars were educated by Africans. The world's oldest university, library, encyclopedia, human prosthetic, mathematical tool, medical journals, and the world's oldest standing kingdom are all located in Africa. The world's largest wall ever built is not the Great Wall of China. It's actually the Great Wall of Benin in Mali, Africa. And it is 4 times larger than the Great Wall of China and is recognized by the Guinness World Record as being the largest wall ever built. They don't teach it in our schools. They want us to think that we come from lesser. Africans are also the first to build in stone and to smelt metal. Africans introduced science, writing, mathematics, and philosophy to the world. Africans invented the wheel, paper, the calendar, the concept of 24 hours in a day, the 365-day calendar, the clock, leap year, organized labor, surgical instruments, all from Africans. Africans invented cosmetic, the plow, black ink, ink pen, shoes, high heel shoes, the condoms, hair wigs, hair dyes, hair extensions, makeup, hairbrush, the comb, keys, Bretman, the chisel, toothpaste, doorknobs, shaving, writing, human prosthetic, astronomy, medicine, all paved roads, governments, all by Africans. But they miseducate us to believe that we were illiterate. Africans also introduced the daily bath to Europeans. You see, the history we've been taught has been whitewashed. The white society sits upon a throne of white exalting and marginalizing lies. They do it to instill a value system into our subconscious mind that makes us more accepting of white dominance over our lives. Brothers and sisters, it's time to wake up to our reality. One love and peace.